Okay, welcome everybody to the Ingram Content Group first Google Hangout, certainly from Europe. We're here today to talk about the new service that we're offering to publishers, which is the opportunity to create catalogues using the same kind of convenient technology that people are accustomed to with their published books. So single copy service for catalogues, and we have technology to suit that particular need. So you will find that you can create a list in which to send the catalogue. Should we press start? Hold on. What's that?
We click start.
Yeah, we did it before. It said live. Okay. Go.
Oh, I think Rob's still on it. Oh no, if you click on internet, go to the internet bar at the bottom.
Where's that?
Oh, click take me there, click take me there. Click OK.
Okay. Stop. Okay.
We're back in.
Great. Okay, apologies for that. We had a few technical problems, as you'd expect with new technology. So I'll start again for those who may have missed that. We are here today to talk about the new service which we are able to provide to publishers, which is our Ingram Catalogue program, which provides the same level of convenience of single copy print on demand that many publishers are familiar with their published books. We were meant to be joined by the team at Edelweiss. Unfortunately, something's come up, but we are able to cover both elements today, and we're going to cover the Edelweiss component in more detail in another session. So we may not need the full hour today that we originally scheduled. I'm here today with my colleague, Paul Williams, who's
Hello.
the Senior Strategic Manager in the UK. As you may notice from the accent, we are pulling from the UK today, not our head office, which is in the US. We have, however, got our colleague Rob Clements, the Senior Key Account Manager in Toronto, and manages many of the public over in North America and Canada, and he will lead the presentation today. You should be able to ask questions at any point throughout the presentation, and we'll take questions at the end. So I'm going to hand you over to Rob, who's going to go through the service and how it can work with the Edelweiss platform, which we've teamed up with Above the Tree Line, which is one of our partners. So I'll hand you over to Rob now. Okay.
Well, hello. Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction. My name is Rob Clements, and I help out at Ingram. I'm the Senior Key Account Sales Manager, and have been dealing with our catalog program. This is a brief presentation that just gives you a basic overview of what we've been up to in recent weeks. We've discovered, somewhat surprisingly, that there is a lot of pain surrounding the issues of catalog creation and distribution in the publishing world. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we're doing on that front to help publishers not only print catalogs in more precise quantities and distribute them, but also partnerships that we're developing that will assist publishers in creating the catalogs in the first place. A little bit about Ingram Content Group, just in general, if some of you are not familiar with it. Our mission is to help content reach its destination, and historically most of our work has been focused on producing traditional books with ISBNs, through traditional channels, assisting publishers in that way. But catalogs really do fit into the larger scope of what we do, which is helping content get to its destination. It really brings together a number of services and companies that Ingram works with and has under its umbrella. Ingram Content Group, for those of you who don't know, was created a few years ago by merging together a number of different companies under the same umbrella that dealt with content creation and distribution. Lightning Source is obviously one of the main components of that, and most of you are probably on this webinar because you're familiar with Lightning Source. But Ingram also works in a number of other areas, including digital distribution, digital asset management. Wholesale business is quite large in the U.S., and the wholesale division works in 195 different countries. But we also have relationships with retailers, libraries, and educators through services such as Vital Source, which is an electronic textbook delivery platform. And it's the bringing together of all of these things under one umbrella that allows the kind of synergy that lets us produce a catalog and then provide marketing options for the publishers once that catalog is created. Here's just some basic statistics about Ingram. We are working right now in 195 countries, and so one of the things that we can bring to the table that most other printers can't is the logistics involved and required to move shipments into multiple different territories around the world. We also have are the leading print-on-demand provider in the world for digital printing, and we've invested a significant amount of capital in recent years with the next generation of inkjet technology, which allows us to print full-color work at nearly black and white prices, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in just a moment. In terms of our footprint internationally, Ingram is very much moving in a global direction. This is just a slide that shows you where we're working. The yellow locations are places where we can actually print things at this point. Blue locations are distribution centers. And then we've got some unique partnerships in red and green forming in countries where we don't actually own equipment, but we've entered into relationships to facilitate the printing and distribution of content in places of the world where we're not quite ready to set up shop. Catalogs really are a product of converging technologies. One is just the product selection that we're offering. I was one of the first, I came to Lightning Source as a publisher, and I was one of the first clients to sign up. I think it was customer number 25. That was way back in 1998. We had just a few trim sizes, a 6x9 book, an 8.5 by 11 book, and I think it was a 5.5 by 8.5 inch trim size. Since then, we've introduced more than 400 book types. So the product types and selection that Lightning Source is offering has grown exponentially in recent years, partially due to the introduction of color technology, which is the second circle here that's converging. And then the third circle is global distribution. All of these things...
Hi Rob, sorry to interrupt you. We've just noticed we can see your screen, but it doesn't seem to move with your voice. So I don't know whether...
We're still on the original slide.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We're just... some slight technicality issues. Here we go.
That's better.
Yeah, that's much better. Okay, sorry, Ron.
Please continue.
Please continue. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, continuing on, as I said, one of our recent advances is investing in standard color printing equipment. That's the product offering, what we call it internally. What it is an inkjet-based process rather than a toner-based process for printing color. And these machines are quite expensive. There's not a lot of them around, but what it does is bring the cost of printing full color work down significantly. Until last week, the main hold up on the color front was really just the thickness of the paper stock that we could run through. We introduced this product offering with a 45-pound stock, and then we moved to a 50-pound stock as well. And just as of last week, we've introduced the ability to print 70-pound paper with this equipment, and that has really moved us into areas of the publishing world where print on demand has not previously gone. Children's book publishing, arts and craft books, books that have photographs, and of course catalogs is part of that. Now we're finding that for the most part the 50-pound stock is equal or better than what many publishers have been printing their catalogs on, given that they're often recycled and they're not intended for resale. And that's where we've seen a significant uptake in interest from the publishing community, because it does seem to be a sore point for many of them. The number of printed catalogs required seems to be decreasing. Meanwhile, the amount of investment and time required to advertise through online channels and social media is increasing, and the combination of those two factors together means that many publishers are looking for a solution that would allow them to print smaller quantities more frequently with less investment, and to keep those catalogs up to date. Of course, one of the main problems with printing catalogs is that it's nearly obsolete the moment you print it, because you've published more books or you have drop-in titles that need to be added in afterwards and didn't make the production schedule. So we want to just explore that a little bit in the next slides. Of course, what underlies all of Lightning Source is not simply the ability to print through fancy new printers, but the content management system and computer systems that underlie all of this. We've spent a lot of time thinking through new publishing models and pivoting some of that architecture to enable us to do things that haven't been done in the publishing industry before. Among those projects are custom content and what we're calling web to print, which is namely the ability to go and create content on the fly that's customized for a particular application, in many cases a one-off application. So for example, we've got one client who is printing customized children's books where the parent can go in and put in a name, and that book is then dedicated to that child, or the child can become a figure in the story. We've been able to move into other areas like marketing support, review copies, galley copies. There's really no minimum to what we can do with this. And one of the larger projects that we engaged in just over 2 years ago was developing a very comprehensive journal platform. And it's really the journal platform that has made catalog printing possible for the first time. There were a number of technical restrictions with our traditional print-on-demand offering that made it difficult for journal and serial publishers, magazine publishers, to work with print-on-demand. One of the main obstacles was that we tended to print a large, ugly barcode on the back of every book block and on the back of every cover for the simple purpose of making sure that we put the right book block in the right cover. And you can imagine in our Laverne facility, our flagship facility in Tennessee, we manufacture about 50,000 units in an 8-hour shift, and without that barcoding technology, the possibility for putting the wrong book in the wrong cover is very great. And so barcoding is typically, one of the sacrifices that's necessary for producing product in a one-off manner. So we looked at that, and we were able to figure out a way to take the barcode off the back cover and reduce the size of the barcode on the inside cover to a very small line on the very last page, and to ensure that we could also print on the inside cover of the book. Those were two demands that were really asked from us from the journal publishing community, primarily because the back cover and the inside cover is prime real estate. So we built a platform to do that. I've just pulled up a screenshot here of it so you can have a look at what it looks like. If you're familiar with the normal Lightning Source portal for book publishers, it looks very similar, but we've made some improvements. We've added a drag and drop interface that allows a publisher to go in and basically drop in PDF files. There's no setup charge. Basically, the files just sit there and they can be.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think I don't know if it's a case of refreshing your browser, but again, the slide deck seems to be stalling. So you're coming across very clear, but
but we're not on the slide that you're actually talking to at the moment.
Right, okay. Bear with me one moment. Seems to be about a 45-second delay.
Yeah.
How are we doing now?
Yeah, that's much better, Rob. If you could make the screen bigger, if possible, that'd be fantastic. But we can see what you're seeing now, so that's good.
Okay. So this is the journal platform. It requires a separate login. It is what we call web to print. Essentially, the file sits in here. There's no setup charge associated with it. The publisher drags the PDF onto the screen. It populates a number of serials. And the other thing that was really important to develop for journals was the ability to print product that doesn't have an ISBN number. Of course, journals use an ISSN number. So once we were able to clear that hurdle, it enabled us to start thinking about other ways that this technology can be purposed for printing things besides journals. And so we're moving to language like custom print and distribute. The second part of the journal platform was the ability to send out a particular item to multiple addresses in a polybag, in many cases at economy postage rates, to multiple destinations, simply by dragging a spreadsheet and onto this window over here. It populates into the system, and we can actually go in and import and export this list. It checks the postal code, ensures that we're actually sending it to a real destination, and that all of this matches up. And then with that cleaned up list, we're able to export and repurpose that for future mailings. So in a nutshell, the business opportunity here is taking the inkjet printing technology and the journal infrastructure and allowing it to print catalogs, which is a non-traditional product for Lightning Source, and distribute that through all of the relationships that Ingram has. Thirdly, we've added a partnership with a company called Above the Tree Line, which has a product called Edelweiss. And Edelweiss is very popular in the U.S. right now. It's been growing exponentially as publishers have been migrating their catalog listings online. But there's still a residual need to print off physical copies for trade shows for the sales marketing purposes. And so we thought it would be great to explore how we could make that system work a little bit better.
Great. Rob, I think what we're going to do is, for those viewers who are having trouble seeing the screen like us, we'll do another recording that's not live and then post it to those people that are having trouble following up the PowerPoint. We can hear you very well and you're coming across really clearly, so perhaps we should have it more, rather than focus on the PowerPoint. I think all three of us on this call have kind of come from the publishing industry, so I think we can at least talk about some of the opportunities the platform presents, and then for those that want to see the PowerPoint, we'll make sure that everybody who's on the call can take that later. I mean, from my point of view, Rob, working in marketing in the publishing industry, you're faced with the challenge of, especially if you're in charge of the marketing department, you're faced with the challenge of printing enough catalogues for the sales and editorial teams, but you've also got the challenge of not knowing exactly what the demand is. So, I mean, in terms of this technology and how it applies to publishers, my kind of understanding is that publishers can use it really in any way that they want to, but one of the main advantages would be that they can set the files up using maybe Edelweiss if they don't have the capabilities, or if they do have their own InDesign team, they can set the files up themselves, and they can print as little as 1 copy or 50 copies to 5 500 copies. But I guess the fact that this technology allows publishers to print very small quantities of catalogues, but also make it economically viable for them. I guess it enables them to do more things like quarterly updates and promotions and other things that the traditional old school of printing would be a challenge, because you know coming from the industry, you typically need to print quantities of upwards of 1,000 for it to be obviously economically viable.
Usually because we need to reprint, or you're hoping you don't need to reprint at a later time.
Yeah.
But with the POD technology now, you can print a smaller quantity, knowing that you can literally print a single copy when you need it.
Yeah. So Rob, I know you have kind of worked with publishers in North America and Canada ahead of where we have in Europe. But maybe talk about some of the publishers that you work with and how they've been using the platform. That'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, sure. So we've been doing lots of different types of catalogs. As you say, our sweet spot in terms of the market is really under 1,000 copies. When a publisher exceeds 2,000 copies, the cost of offset printing starts to make more sense. The per unit cost is lower, and we're very, very competitive up to about 1,500 copies with our pricing model right now. But there's lots of industry kind of printing that goes on that it doesn't come anywhere near those kind of quantities in the typical life of a publishing operation. So we've had a number of university presses, for example, who have been doing subject catalogs with us that they really don't need several thousand copies of. That's allowed them to go into more granular detail with their list and create very specific catalogs. We've had other publishers who have decided that they want to do specific territorial trade, regular seasonal catalogs, but divide them up rather than printing one global catalog and having to explain that particular title is not available in this particular market. They've designed 3 separate catalogs, one for Canada, one for the US, and one for the UK, and then use the technology to print that in smaller quantities than they would have the option to do with traditional offset technology. Other publishers have been exploring what they can do with Edelweiss, and just by way of introduction to Edelweiss, as I said, it's an online repository of publishers' catalogs, and the publishers can go in fact, anyone can go in with an account and create specific lists of titles. So if you're a publisher, that lets you go in, for example, if you were a university press, and create a list of all of your, say, anthropology titles. And typically you're probably not publishing a catalog's worth of titles in a particular season, but over a number of years you may have acquired quite a number of titles in that particular area, and that subject catalog would be of particular interest to particular conferences. So that sort of enabling the publisher to drill down into specific subject areas and specific territorial regions on a much more focused level seems to be the attraction to this technology. The other thing, as Paul hinted at, was the ability to not have to guess at the print run. In our model, there's really no minimum print run, and once the title is into the system, if you need more copies shipped at a later juncture, it is very easy just to go in and print 25 more for the next conference, or to go in and update it with several more titles that you've added since the last 25 were printed. So part of the benefit here is just reducing the amount of waste that typically happens with publishing catalogs.
And Rob, with the technology, as I understood it, we've got the publisher has the option to I don't know, print, for example, 300 or 500 and have them sent back to their warehouse or their office. But am I correct in thinking that with the technology, a publisher could upload their mailing list upwards of thousands or hundreds of contacts in US or Europe, and we can send the individual catalogues out to the end users. That's something that we can do now. Is that something that's live? Is that something that's possible on the platform?
Yeah, it's live in the U.S. and I should say at this point we've been doing catalogs in the U.S. For a few months now. We're continuing to expand the options that we have currently. Right now we have a minimum of 200 addresses to engage in a direct mailing project, and those addresses are provided on a spreadsheet. We can basically work with any spreadsheet that you've got, provided that it's got the main fields, address, title, subject, or postal code, that sort of thing. The importer tool that I had attempted to show you earlier in this presentation is actually quite flexible and can work with most mailing lists as long as it's in an Excel format or a CAB, comma separated tab format. What we're discovering with catalogs is that the orders typically are larger projects that are developed by a marketing team that consist of two kinds of orders. One is the individual one-off shipped to a single address order, and typically that will run anywhere between, depending on the size of the publisher, between 500 and up to several thousand one-off lists. But the second part are what we would call drop ships, and so a typical order will see a whole bunch of one-offs, and then we'll see 20 here and 50 there, and maybe several hundred to the warehouse if required for a large order, or maybe just a couple hundred to back to the publisher's office, depending on what structures and systems they have in place to distribute it. We can also drop ship the catalogs to a direct mail provider, so we've been working with some in the States who do all of that work for the publisher. With the publisher rents a mailing list, and they just need 1,500 copies of the particular catalog drop shipped to the service provider for mailing out. But we are developing internally, to answer your question, the ability to do direct mail from our own facility.
Great. So, given some of the technical challenges we've been presented with from our Hangout session, with the viewers that obviously have taken part, what we're going to do is rerun this session that's not live, so we know that the slides can kind of map to our to Rob's presentation, and then we're going to mail this out to those viewers who have joined us today, and for those that that were unable to listen to the live broadcast. So this is not the first Google Hangout session we've certainly done in Europe, but I've attended others, and occasionally these glitches happen. So apologies for those that have joined us today. We did want the power deck to coincide with our presentation, and it's not been possible. But what we will do is fix it. Get this sent out to you guys so you can see how the platform works from the Lightning source end, and we'll give you an insight into how it can function from Edelweiss. And then at a later point we'll do another presentation with the Edelweiss team to look specifically at how they can help publishers set up catalogues. Because from my understanding, Rob, is publishers have got two options. If they've got the technical capabilities to create their own catalogues, they can do that using Adobe InDesign and go straight into the LSI platform. For many of our smaller publishers, or for those that either don't have the technical capabilities or they don't have the resources to do it themselves, they can use Edelweiss as a way of creating the catalogues, which I understand linked into the LSI platform, and then we can print catalogues for the smaller publishers, as well as the very large ones, which we know are already engaged with Edelweiss, and some of them are obviously using Lightning Source already to print their catalogues.
Yeah, that's right. I think the main takeaway is that we print catalogs, and you can send them to us any way you want to. The second takeaway is that you really need to sign a journal addendum if you're an existing Lightning Source client to enable you to have access to the platform to be able to print on the inside cover and do the sort of printing that's required for a catalog. Unfortunately, we're still in the process of rebranding that, so it seems a little bit counterintuitive to sign a journal contract or addendum to print catalogs, but we wanted to give you some background. We've really been surprised by how interested publishers are in this particular product, and we're moving as quickly as we can to provide all the documentation and the systems in place, get those systems in place to enable publishers to print these things in a more streamlined fashion. If anyone is on the call and would like to know how to design or would like just more general information about the journal platform, the best thing to do is just to email us, and we can send you the technical specs. The Edelweiss component is really a secondary step. It's in development. It's in beta stage right now. If you have an Edelweiss account, you can go and talk to the kind folks at Edelweiss, and they can give you access to play with the beta version of it. But at this point, we're set up and ready to print anything that you can send us as an InDesign file. There are some specific design. How should I put this? There's some unique design components to designing a duplex cover that does not currently work with our cover template generator that's on the website. So you'll need to email us for a template if you'd like to try it out, but we'll be happy to do that.
That's great. Thanks, Rob. And just to answer some of the questions that have been coming in from viewers, as you'd expect, a lot of them around some of the challenges we're experiencing today on the PowerPoint deck. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, we're going to do a session using the PowerPoint and making sure it obviously syncs in. We'll send that link on to the viewers, hopefully by the end of this week, so people can access that. And just to kind of touch on Rob's comments, I mean, we're in the very early stages of launching this as a real new service to our publishers. So as I'm in charge of the marketing outside North America, and we really have just started to talk to publishers about it through email communication, and we've been overwhelmed by responses, which is why we've decided to at least attempt to host a webinar where we can explain some of the technical challenges that may present to a publisher. But obviously we've faced our own technical challenges on the webinar. So apologies for everybody who didn't see the full benefit of it.
There is that specific question that we've been asked.
Sorry.
So the question we've been asked is, we're a publisher that also has other support products. Is this platform flexible in terms of other products? Oh, yes, indeed. In fact, it's come from the journals platform. It's the same platform in essence, though it's being rebranded. We are a print-on-demand supplier. We do books mostly, but we've moved into journals. But if you think of anything that is required printing in single copies, then that works with this platform as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Rob, for your time. Thanks, Paul. Apologies, viewers, for the technical challenges that we were presented with. We will fix it, and we'll get you the deck out as soon as possible. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Cheers.
Rob.
Cheers.